We are members of a wild hog control team in Oklahoma, and at Twin Eagle Ranch, there is no room for mistakes. More than 1,000 hectares of farmland are being destroyed day by day, fields torn apart, irrigation systems shattered, young corn and soybean sprouts wiped out in a single night. This is no longer a small problem. This is a fight for the survival of an entire harvest. And we do not rely on brute force, but on strategy. The screen of the Hawkeye camera we placed beside 3 big pig traps along the forest edge suddenly lit up. The hogs were in position. The bait, rooting juice, a mix of rotten cheese scent and sweet corn, was doing its job. 1:57 a.m. Dark shadows quietly entered the trap zone. No sound, no sign of suspicion. Wait a little longer. One more. Now, I hit the button. The round trap gate slammed shut. Instantly, the silence was ripped apart by the dry clang of metal striking metal. The hogs inside panicked, hurling themselves into the steel frame with such force that the whole area seemed to shake. The chaos lasted for several minutes before they finally realized they were completely trapped. To make sure nothing had gone wrong, we jumped into the Jeep Gladiator that same night and sped down the dirt trails. When the headlights hit the trap, the scene became crystal clear. The entire sounder, including hogs weighing over 200 pounds, had been captured. After the forest edge area had been disturbed, the hogs began shifting toward lower ground. To block their movement, I decided to set 2 additional octagon-style traps near the livestock pens. It was a narrow position directly along the trail they regularly used to reach water. Fresh rooting marks in the soil proved this had become the new hotspot. 9:21 p.m. The screen vibrated with movement. A large group entered. They sniffed, tested every steel bar. The tension weighed on every second. My hand stayed on the trigger button. Not too early, not too late. I held my breath. This is the moment. Press it. The steel frame shook violently. The hogs inside lost all sense of direction, crashing into one another in the darkness while their bodies slammed against the steel mesh. The chaos peaked before they slowly exhausted themselves and were locked in tight. Less than 2 hours later, at 10:50 p.m., the second trap alerted. This group was more cautious. Just as they seemed to sense something was wrong, I activated the trap in time. 2 sounders. One night. Full control. Deep in the woods is where the large boars usually hide during the day. There, I used a reinforced box trap built with a specially strengthened steel frame. Through the camera, I watched them circle outside. They inspected everything, moved around again and again. I did not rush. Patience is the only weapon that matters. When the whole group was fully inside the zone, I triggered it. The gate dropped shut. Hogs weighing more than 250 pounds went wild, smashing into the walls of the trap with deafening force. Panic swallowed the entire group until they understood every effort was useless. They had fallen into a trap calculated down to the inch. After the hogs were secured, we handled the site safely and efficiently. The muddy ground after the rain unexpectedly worked in our favor, making it easier to drag the heavy animals thanks to the slick surface. We used a trailer and truck combination to move the load. Once finished, the hogs were divided into two parts. One portion sent to a professional processing facility. The rest donated to local families to prepare as food themselves. Everything ended cleanly, restoring peace to the ranch. This is not a numbers game. This is a battle of minds. Observation, patience, perfect timing. One small mistake, and everything falls apart. But when everything works exactly as planned, we do not just catch wild hogs. We take back the fields. Night falls over the forests of Alabama. On the surface, everything seems quiet, but beneath the canopy, a real threat is unfolding. Wild hogs. In the United States, they're classified as a dangerous invasive species. They reproduce at a staggering rate, competing for food and pushing native wildlife toward the brink of starvation. If their population is not controlled, the ecosystem here will fall seriously out of balance.
Crazy.
Today, we are not using rifles, nor heavy steel cages. We chose to deploy the pig brig, my father, my most trusted partner, and I began setting up the net trap. A successful hunt or capture always requires seamless coordination. He drives in the anchor stakes. I stretch the netting. Discipline and precise communication ensure the trap functions perfectly. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than soft mesh suspended in the woods. But this is a revolution in wild hog control. There is no metal drop gate, no loud crash. We scatter corn, an irresistible bait from the outside, leading deep into the center of the trap. Understanding the prey's behavior is the key. Wild hogs naturally root their snouts into the ground to search for food. This net system is designed to exploit that very instinct. They can easily push their way under the bottom of the net to enter. But the special design prevents them from rooting backward or jumping back out. Getting in is easy. Getting out is impossible. "3 a.m. bright, eyes appear on the monitoring screen. A large herd, what we call a sounder, is approaching. They sniff cautiously, but the scent of corn is too tempting. The lead hog pushes under the net and enters. Then the second, the third. Suddenly, the air shifts. When the last hog slips inside, they begin to sense something is wrong. Wild instinct surges. They turn, trying to push back through the net to escape. But it's useless. The entire herd erupts into panic. They slam into the mesh walls. Growls and pounding hooves echo through the forest. Yet the advantage of the pig brig lies in its humane design. There is no crashing steel gate to trigger violent shock or cause injury. The system operates steadily throughout the night, quiet and effective. dawn, we drive back to the trap site. The sight before us is astonishing. An entire herd lies contained within the net. No matter how hard they ram or shove, the mesh functions like a giant cushion. It stretches, absorbs the full force of hundreds of pounds of muscle, then recoils, pushing them back inward. Capturing the entire herd removes a major threat to local residents and livestock. It also prevents the potential spread of disease. Nearby, our second pig brig system has just secured another massive group. Among them are well-fed sows weighing over 90 kilograms. A single sow can produce 2 litters per year, with up to 10 piglets each time. Capturing this group means preventing the birth of hundreds of piglets in the future, saving tons of crops for neighboring farms. And now comes the hardest part, loading them. Adult hogs are incredibly strong. We use specialized shields, pressing in carefully and guiding them one by one into the trailer. Standing in front of agitated wild animals demands absolute calm. One small mistake can lead to serious injury. A true professional is someone who masters fear and handles the situation decisively. The Jeep Gladiator truck rolls away, carrying the harvest from sight. The forest returns to its natural quiet. But our work is not simply about capture. It is about protecting farmers' crops and restoring living space for native wildlife. We respect nature by intervening at the right time to maintain balance. But this battle is not over. I look down at fresh tracks pressed into the damp soil outside the net. They likely belong to a solitary boar, old, cunning, and wise enough to stay back and watch last night's chaos without stepping aside. It seems next time, we'll need a smarter strategy. Like and share to follow along with us. It truly was an unforgettable experience. Even after more than 20 years working the peanut fields in Texas, I still shudder when I think back to that moment. At first light, I was out patrolling the edge where the farmland meets the forest. The ground had been completely torn up, roots ripped apart, animal tracks stamped densely across the soil. I knew I couldn't delay any longer. A full-scale containment plan was set into motion. The challenges closing in felt far beyond anything I had ever faced before. I started with the most traditional methods, one-way steel cage traps and small drop traps. The location was carefully chosen, the edge of dense brush, where deep tracks pressed into the still wet mud confirmed the presence of wild boars. The trap itself was modest in size, about 1 meter wide and nearly 2 meters long, designed only for single targets. Golden corn kernels were scattered with precision, forming a trail that lured them from the narrow entrance all the way to the darkest corner inside. After days of conditioning them, the result fell far short of expectations. Only a single, solitary boar was caught. These small traps quickly revealed their limitations. When I reviewed the camera footage from one of the drop traps, my heart sank. The boars had indeed shown up. They approached slowly, cautiously, even stepping deep inside the trap. But only a few were captured. The rest lingered just outside the perimeter, watching their trapped companions with cold, unreadable eyes before slipping back into darkness. The plan had completely failed. I had no choice but to adapt. I switched to a larger drop trap system. At around 4:30 in the morning, a sharp, hollow sound echoed. The gate slammed shut, but once again, disappointment followed. Only one had failed to escape. The boars had grown smarter with every close call. This confrontation was becoming more intense than ever. Refusing to back down against their cunning, I shifted operations to the eastern wetlands, a low, damp area rich with activity. A massive steel enclosure was constructed, reinforced with a solid frame, measuring up to 4 by 8 meters. It was large enough to contain an entire group. The bait, rich with strong scent attractants, began to take effect. These were dominant males, over 100 kilograms, with massive builds and hides as tough as armor. Hunger began to dull their instincts. Greed slowly overpowered caution. Step by heavy step, they moved deeper into the trap, unaware that the final gate was already waiting. 2:35 a.m. The alarm device vibrated relentlessly in my hand. I slammed the gas pedal, and my Jeep Wrangler pickup tore through dense brush, ripping apart the night mist. The tension was overwhelming. As I got closer, I raised a high-powered flashlight and aimed it straight into the center of the trap. Inside the cage, pairs of glowing eyes reflected back, fierce, aggressive. Low growls rumbled as a warning. Seeing that, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over me. All the worry, exhaustion, and sleepless nights of waiting had finally paid off. Dawn began to break, the fog slowly lifting. I moved deeper into the forest to check the secondary traps set along a dry creek bed. What appeared before me was pure chaos. For wild boars were completely trapped. An old sow weighing around 80 kilograms, along with her growing offspring, crammed into the tight space. They lunged repeatedly at the steel mesh, their long snouts slamming hard against the frame in desperation. Every attempt to dig their way out was futile against the reinforced locking system and dense steel wiring. Building on previous experience and success, an open plain near the edge of an oak forest, I decided to deploy my ace card, a modular smart trap system. White steel panels, tightly connected yet highly flexible to assemble and adjust. An entire family of black wild boars, from aggressive dominant males to half-grown juveniles, was now fully contained within the steel enclosure. The most destructive intruders had been completely subdued, a decisive victory for persistence. The final phase, transport, began with absolute focus. A specialized trailer over 4 meters long was backed tightly against the exit gate of the trap, forming a continuous passage. My partner and I stood on both sides, holding the guiding panels firmly in place. The sliding gate opened. The boars, cornered, had no choice but to surge forward onto the trailer. The final lock snapped shut. The entire destructive herd had been removed from the farm, restoring peace to the fields. This battle against wild boars was never just about strength. It was about the combination of modern trapping technology and the resolve of the farmer. Understanding behavior, patient observation, and decisive action. Those are the keys to protecting one's livelihood. As the vehicle disappeared beyond the tree line, I knew I had fulfilled my duty to protect this land with full responsibility and determination. Everything did not begin a farm. but with the survival of the largest freshwater reservoir in Coconino County. The water source, sustaining tens of thousands of people, was being contaminated day by day. The wild boars poured down like a black flood, tearing up the shoreline, churning the muddy bottom, turning the entire lake into a polluted swamp. This was a crisis, and that was when our rapid response team had no choice but to step in.
Lasst es laufen!
We moved quickly to secure emergency access permits from landowners around the lake. Immediately after came 48 hours of continuous surveillance. We followed tracks pressed deep into the mud, fresh rub marks still visible on pine trunks as high as 3 feet. Once their routes were understood, I began the free-baiting phase, spreading feed for days without setting any trap, building habit and trust. And then, when they had completely lowered their guard, I launched the first strike. A smart enclosure trap controlled by smartphone. Every sensor signal was synchronized directly through the cellular network. Nearly 7 p.m., my phone vibrated in my pocket. I opened the app. A herd of black boars stood feeding beneath the bait station. The screen displayed one command. Do you want to close gate? I held my breath. My finger touched yes. The gate dropped instantly. The entire herd was captured in a single moment. 11:27 p.m. We moved on to control another group. But if you look closely, a few clever individuals had stepped back at the exact moment the gate was about to fall. They had learned their first lesson, and from now on, everything would become far more difficult. The remaining group had become extremely cautious. They now avoided any narrow structure completely. I had to manipulate their instincts. Through space itself, at an open clearing near the forest edge, I built a large corral trap, assembled from heavy-duty steel panels. The key was in the design, 2 wide drop gates placed in different directions. Wild boars are naturally suspicious, but an open space with multiple exits can deceive their survival instincts. They believed it was only a natural feeding ground, a place where escape was always possible. And just as predicted, the herd lowered its guard and slowly moved deeper into the center of the trap. The moment had come. I hit the trigger. 2 massive steel gates slammed down at once. Every path of retreat vanished in an instant. Caught without warning, the boars erupted into panic. They scattered wildly, crashing into the mesh walls with sharp, violent sounds. The chaos in the air was enough to tense anyone watching. After the herd was split apart, the most cunning core group drifted to an open grassy slope not far from the reservoir. The trap there was built from multiple sections of reinforced tubular steel fencing, with no roof overhead. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than an ordinary livestock pen from a farm. We spread a heavy layer of corn directly in the center and waited patiently. The signal came through. A herd of more than a dozen wild boars, of every size and color, was packed inside. The golden opportunity had arrived. The release command was triggered remotely. Immediately, the entire frame shook violently under the force of their impact. But the circular linked structure dispersed the shock perfectly. Not one weak point, not one escape route. After 2 consecutive full herd captures, the main group, destroying the water source, had finally been taken. The operation continued, pushing the survivors deeper into the forest where no electrical grid existed. With no other option, we deployed a corral trap integrated with solar power. Its self-sustaining energy source quietly kept cameras and the automatic feeder running for weeks on end, steady, silent, like an invisible trap. No human scent, no engine noise. The long silence slowly eroded their instincts to be cautious. 8:02 a.m. Under the first sunlight of morning, an entire group of sows led their piglets in, feeding beneath the hopper. The decisive moment. The image recognition system instantly locked onto the target. The gate slammed shut. The animals inside bolted in panic, while a few left outside escaped. Everything happened in a split second. The mission neared its end on the dry plain beside the lake. The giant patented circular trap from Jaeger Pro was deployed like a fortress, determined to capture the last herd and deny them any chance to return and destroy again. The monitoring screen showed a sight that made me stop breathing. A massive herd of wild boars, black as night, was cautiously entering the trap zone. More than a dozen animals stepped one by one past the gate threshold, unaware that danger was waiting above them. Two heavy steel gates crashed down, thanks to the circular design that eliminated every blind corner. The strength of the boars became meaningless. The final mission was complete. The next morning, we drove out in our Ford trucks to each trap site. Moving wild boars from the steel enclosure into transport trailers demanded patience and perfect coordination. Because of their untamed nature, the animals were highly restless, so we used sound cues and portable barriers to guide them safely into the trailer compartments. Once secured, they will be transported to a designated management area, helping protect the water supply and restore balance to the local ecosystem. Controlling invasive wildlife in America is not about brute force alone. It is a battle of intelligence powered by technology. Every trap, every touch on a smartphone screen is the result of careful behavioral study. Only decisiveness and modern innovation can truly protect the peace of farms and the balance of nature. As a field coordinator with the Arizona Wild Boar Rapid Response Team, I have faced countless critical situations, but the chain of events that unfolded recently on the Suburban edge still stays with me. Heavy steel structures shook violently. The ground trembled beneath the force of tons of muscle. It all began when cornfields were flattened, driving wild boars out of the fields and into residential areas. 8 a.m., an emergency video was sent to the control center. In the middle of a busy street, an aggressive wild boar suddenly charged out and attacked a pedestrian head-on. It was violent, terrifying, and unbelievably fast. After the dangerous animal was brought under control, our immediate assessment was clear. Food sources in the nearby dry hills had likely been exhausted, forcing the boars down into the neighborhood in search of food. The situation was critical. I ordered all trail access points sealed and launched a full-scale control operation on the hillside above the town. Before any trap could be placed, the technical team spent hours tracking signs. Fresh hoof prints in soft mud, tree bark torn apart, deep-rooting marks along the forest edge. Everything pointed to the presence of a large sounder. Once the movement route was confirmed, I authorized deployment of a hexagonal drop trap built with a reinforced steel frame. Size: 6.6 feet, 9.8 feet, built as a reconnaissance setup. To test reactions and estimate the density of the lead group. 11:24 p.m., the camera captured 2 boars, each around 88 pounds, entering the center zone. I immediately triggered the trap. The gate dropped. Both targets were secured cleanly. But through the infrared screen, I could still see larger shadows lingering outside the perimeter. They were too cautious to enter such a tight enclosure. We had moved too quickly. I changed tactics. This time, a box trap made from high-strength aluminum alloy. Size: 4.9 feet, 8.2 feet, fully enclosed, designed to deceive visual suspicion. The target now was not the whole group, but oversized solitary boars with aggressive behavior. Those are the individuals posing the most immediate threat to nearby residents. Around 2 a.m., a giant boar appeared. Estimated weight, nearly 660 pounds. It stepped inside cautiously, then began devouring the fermented corn bait. The trap was triggered. The beast was locked inside. It slammed wildly against the aluminum walls, creating violent metallic crashes. The final solution was deployed, the circular elevated trap. Diameter, 32.8-foot frame. Heavy tubular steel covered with ultra-durable mesh. The entire system was suspended 3.9 feet above the ground by electric winch cables. Its open design made the boars drop their guard. We spread fermented grain in a wide circle beneath the center of the trap. At the transition zone between the hills and town, the giant black trap finally showed movement. Around 10 boars entered in a crowded rush. They shoved, competed, and fed greedily, completely unaware that the trap was already waiting above them. Once the entire group was inside, I pressed the remote trigger. The steel frame dropped free. The system locked instantly. The whole sounder was contained inside the circular barrier. Everything seemed calm until the next morning. Around 8 a.m., one of my teammates called in urgently and told me to check the camera feed immediately. I could hardly believe what I saw. A dense group of wild boars had entered the smaller trap. This version was smaller than the black trap from the night before, but the results were astonishing. I triggered it immediately. No chance to escape. The boars ran in panic, circling desperately, searching for a gap. But the steel structure had sealed every exit. The direct threat to the residential area was officially removed. We loaded into the Land Rover Defender and headed straight to the site. A pickup truck was backed carefully against the trap gate. Using a long guiding pole, we directed each animal into the transport vehicle one by one in an orderly way, minimizing panic as much as possible. In cases where an individual was excessively aggressive and posed immediate danger to the team, humane on-site action was taken to ensure total safety. Watching each animal brought under control and loaded out, a deep sense of relief spread across the team.
Yep.
Controlling wild boars is a test of patience and strategy. From reading signs in the dirt to adapting trap systems in real time, every move must be calculated. Only by understanding their behavior and how they react can we intervene effectively and restore peace to the community. Recently, the fields have no longer been as peaceful as before. By day, everything still looks green and thriving, but after just one night, the soil is torn apart, plants bitten through, an entire corner of the garden turned into a battlefield. Overlapping footprints of all sizes, this isn't one animal, but a whole herd. There was no other choice. We had to act, not to hunt, but to protect the crops, to protect livelihoods. The traps were set the evening before. Bait was placed along their familiar paths. Everything was carefully prepared, and what happened overnight meant that at first light today, our priority was to check the traps. The first cage appeared at the edge of the field. Inside was a small group. We quickly noticed something. Their fur wasn't the same, black, brown, even striped. This wasn't random. It showed that multiple groups had merged, a sign the herd was growing, expanding its range. Yet a few more weeks, and this place would become their permanent feeding ground. Inside the cage, they pressed together, breathing heavily, unable to escape. We moved to another trap. Some of the boars inside reacted violently. They slammed their heads into the steel frame again and again. Others behaved differently, slipping to the side, using their snouts to probe each bar, searching for the smallest gap to break free. This is something many people overlook. Not every animal reacts the same way. The steel bars rattled, echoing sharp metallic clangs. This was no longer feeding behavior. This was survival instinct. In another corner, a smaller trap had also been triggered. Inside was a single adult and a few juveniles. The confined space prevented them from gaining momentum or coordinating like they could in the open. This is the key point. You don't need a large trap. Just the right placement is enough to hold even the strongest animal. The result from last night made one thing clear. The traps worked, not by chance, but through careful calculation, placing traps along movement paths, dividing positions, baiting according to the herd's habits. But we couldn't stop yet. The traps remained. The bait was replenished. Tonight will be the next test. Slam. The trap door dropped shut. Both were caught, thrashing inside. A good sign. The herd was beginning to lose its caution at the first point. Not long after, at another trap set nearby, a different adult appeared, larger, more cautious. It circled, paused, stepped back, then moved forward along the bait trail. The moment it stepped inside, slam, the second trap snapped shut. Chaos erupted inside, with its size and behavior. We assessed it as a dangerous individual, likely a dominant, experienced animal that had been causing repeated damage in the area. The final outcome of the night came at another trap point. Two were already caught inside. They continued to panic, slamming repeatedly against the steel frame. But outside, a few others had already sensed something was wrong. They didn't move in, just a split second of hesitation. Then they turned and bolted, disappearing into the deep forest. The sound faded into the distance, leaving behind a trap still trembling. And this is something we have to accept. No trapping system is 100% effective. The goal is to break the herd, to reduce the destruction they bring to the crops. The next morning, we returned together to check the traps. At one cage, several were still held inside. One kept jumping, throwing its full weight upward. Clang! It tried to smash against the top of the cage, but it was useless. Trying to escape, but couldn't. The next steps were carried out quickly and efficiently. We secured the cages, transported all the boars out of the farming area, ensuring they would not return to destroy another night. Everything was done according to proper procedures and legal regulations. The final stage, we proceeded with humane handling in full compliance with legal guidelines. No prolonging, no display, just what had to be done. This is not hunting. This is how farmers protect their crops, protect the work of their own hands. What do you think about this approach? As wild boar damage becomes more severe, what other choices do farmers really have? I've lived in Columbus, Georgia for more than 20 years, and I never thought there would come a day when I'd have to guard my farm like a battlefield. Everything started with just a few strange tracks in the field. I ignored them until the next morning when the entire crop was torn apart as if a storm had ripped through overnight. Then they came back, not one, but an entire herd of wild hogs. They smashed fences, tore up the soil, and trampled the harvest I'd spent months caring for. And I realized one thing: if I didn't stop them right now, I was going to lose everything. The first traps were set right along the forest edge, where the hogs usually poured out each night. Not placed randomly, not done in haste. Every location was carefully studied, based on the herd's familiar travel routes. But trapping only at the edge was not enough. Deeper inside the forest, more zones began to be secured as well. Transit points, trails, resting spots, feeding grounds, all of it was gradually brought into the control system. A network was taking shape. We split into teams. Each person was given a role. Everything moved quickly. Once the traps were in place, technology entered the operation. Motion sensor cameras were installed. Automatic target recognition systems recorded every animal that appeared. Every movement was tracked. Every time the herd returned, we had data. No more guessing. No more passive reactions. Everything now was under our control. And after a period of monitoring, we kept bait inside while the trapdoors remained open, watching everything through our devices. When the moment came and the whole herd naturally gathered inside to feed, I looked at my father and knew everything was ready. The decisive moment had arrived. Just one button. The enclosed system activated instantly. Escape routes were blocked almost at the same time. No gaps, no way back. Bang! The drop gate slammed shut with incredible speed. Inside, the wild hogs immediately fell into panic. They scattered, spun in circles, searched every direction for a way out. But every path led to the same ending, a closed circle, no matter how intelligent they were. They gradually lost all sense of direction. Within minutes, the resistance began to fade. No more desperate charges. No more clear attempts to escape. The entire herd was contained inside the trap system. It was over. I looked at my father, and everyone there let out a breath of relief. That same night, reports came in from every other trap we had placed. They had all been triggered, capturing many more targets waiting for their chance to destroy farms and neighborhoods. No one needed to say anything, but everyone understood. After that night, the whole community would finally sleep in peace, no longer fearing their crops would be ruined again. But the most important thing was never the trap. It was the way the community chose to act. The individuals causing the greatest damage were selected first and dealt with through humane, swift, and carefully controlled methods. No chaos, no extremism, just responsible action to avoid unnecessary panic for the animals while bringing real economic relief to local families. This approach was never about wiping them out entirely, but about reducing risk while still respecting ecological balance. And it was true. After that night, silence returned. No more tangled tracks every morning. No more torn up soil after every dark night. But what truly changed was the way people faced the problem. No more rushed reactions. No more isolated efforts. Instead, observe, understand, then act at the right moment. Because in situations like this, the most important decision is not how fast you act, is whether you have enough patience to wait for the right time.
When wild boars begin to destroy, warning signs and how to trap them immediately. No one expects that after just one night, the whole field would turn into a wasteland, torn apart and devastated. Newly rooted crops are overturned, mud splattered everywhere, and fences are bent as if they've just taken a brutal hit. This is a clear sign that the wild boars have returned in packs and are expanding their territory. When the damage exceeds the ability of farmers to repair it, the issue no longer becomes about temporary scares. It's about making the right decision from the very first sign, and that's when our team quickly deployed the wild boar control plan. Through team discussions and planning, we realized that in order to solve the problem at its root, we needed to understand the creatures we were dealing with. Drawing from our experience in controlling wild boars in the US, where the species is considered an invasive threat causing severe damage, one principle is always at the forefront: never go against the natural structure and behavior of the herd. Wild boars feel safest when moving in groups. They avoid anything that could separate the herd or force them into making sudden, stressful decisions. If one individual encounters danger, the entire herd will remember the area and change their route in subsequent visits. For this reason, small, disjointed measures often fail to resolve the issue and can make future control efforts even harder. Trap number 6 was selected due to its open space, curved structure that surrounds the herd's familiar route, allowing them to enter without feeling cornered. Rather than applying pressure, this trap serves as a tool to gently guide their behavior, leading them into a controlled area in the most natural way possible. Trap number 6 wasn't chosen for its strength, but for its ability to intervene early, before the herd can adjust its behavior. This is a long-term control strategy that minimizes the risk of the wild boars learning to avoid traps and returning with even greater destructive force. The trap is set along a predetermined path to minimize changes to the surrounding environment. The trap frames are securely fixed and camouflaged to blend in with the natural surroundings, preventing any foreign elements that might alert the herd. The bait is arranged in layers, not to lure, but to create a familiar and safe atmosphere. The entire process is focused on stability, as even a single hasty action could cause the herd to change its behavior. Wild boars are highly cautious. In the first few nights, the herd only approaches and then retreats. This is their natural risk assessment process. Without any signs of force or pressure, the boars gradually move deeper into the trap area, following their usual routine. Only when the entire herd is inside in its natural state is the intervention triggered. The trap mechanism activates smoothly, safely controlling the entire herd without causing chaos or posing any danger to humans or the surrounding area. Controlling a herd doesn't mean the risk is eliminated. Other herds will continue to scout the area from different directions. However, with the traps already set up and working in sync, subsequent interventions become more proactive and effective. Over time, the area begins to form a risk awareness for the wild boars. They no longer see it as a safe zone to return to, which significantly reduces the likelihood of repeated destruction. Wild boar control is not a hasty action, but a process that requires observation, understanding of behavior, and making the right decision at the right time. Trap number 6 isn't just a tool, it's a testament to responsible management, balancing production, community safety, and the ecosystem. In this silent confrontation, success doesn't come from rushing. It comes from patience, knowledge, and the ability to guide behavior rather than facing it head-on. In wild boar management, true victory doesn't lie in how many boars you catch, but in preventing damage from happening in the first place. You might think this is a nature reserve, but it's not. This is Rome, the capital of Italy. These wild boar families are strolling through crowded neighborhoods as if they were the true owners of the streets. With an estimated population in the millions across Italy, wild boars are rapidly losing their fear of humans. Urban waste has become an easy food source, turning them into a serious threat to traffic safety and daily urban life. What's happening in Rome is a preview of what many suburban areas around the world are beginning to face, as the boundary between city and countryside slowly disappears. So, what's the answer to this growing problem? Instead of mass culling, many countries are choosing more sustainable population management strategies. Most notably, live capture trapping followed by professional handling. One of the most effective tools is the vertical guillotine-style trap. To outsmart such an intelligent animal, experts scatter corn and sweet potatoes along established trails for several days. This builds familiarity and a sense of safety before the trap is ever activated. Take a close look at the trap's design. The frame is welded from heavy-duty angle steel and round bars, strong enough to withstand the full force of an adult boar's charge. The guillotine door hangs above the entrance and, once triggered, drops straight down along steel rails, sealing the trap in a split second. Using either manual pull systems or remote triggers, operators aim to capture the entire sounder, not just individual animals. The door is only activated once the whole group is fully inside. This method prevents scattered survivors from learning, adapting, and returning to cause more trouble later. While box traps work well for smaller groups, areas with heavy wild boar pressure require a more flexible solution, the corral trap. With its large open space, this trap allows for mass capture without making the animals feel cornered, reducing panic and stress. Corral traps are typically set in pastures, forest edges, or heavily damaged agricultural zones. Thanks to their ability to capture entire herds in a single operation, corral traps are considered one of the most effective tools for large-scale wild boar management, protecting crops while meeting humane standards. Another option includes open-top enclosures that create a sense of openness, lowering the boar's natural suspicion. The key lies in the door systems, either one-way entrances or remotely triggered gates, allowing the entire herd to enter freely before closure. Choosing the right trap, placing it in the right location, and activating it at the right moment are critical to success. Not every situation requires herd capture. For isolated boars appearing in gardens, farms, or residential yards, single catch traps offer a simple and cost-effective solution. While they're not suitable for population explosions, they're highly effective for protecting individual properties. From simple cage traps to complex corral systems, each method plays a specific role in an overall wildlife management strategy. Whether the goal is protecting crops, neighborhoods, or ecosystems, the common thread is restoring balance between humans and nature. After a successful capture, the next step is safe handling and transport. Since large traps are usually fixed in place, wild boars are guided into smaller transfer cages, reducing struggle and minimizing injury risk. Depending on local wildlife regulations, suitable animals may be relocated to controlled zones, while others are handled using approved humane methods. As transport trucks roll away from residential areas, peace is restored for local communities, bringing a responsible control operation to a close. These traps are more than technical tools. They're proof that humans can learn to coexist with wildlife, rather than constantly confront it. In suburban areas, controlling wild boars isn't about using the strongest trap. It's about using the right tool for the right situation. When intervention is timely and well-planned, conflict can be prevented before it turns into a crisis. That's how communities can live more safely alongside a changing natural world.